So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach and I'm the author of Pitch to Win. And I've written Pitch to Win because I believe that great ideas need a voice. And Pitch to Win is the result of 15,000 hours of hard work over the last 5 years. 15,000 hours of working at my craft to help people make a great pitch, because it's really difficult. People find it such a challenging and difficult task to communicate their ideas in front of an audience. I've been searching for every way possible to make it easier and more comfortable for people to make that pitch. And it's really a pleasure to be standing in front of you today with an audience and a finished book, because I can tell you that less than 3 years ago, I was at a complete loss. You see, I had just been fired again. And I want to take you back a few years to bring you to the moment of how this book came about. So quite some years ago, I had a corporate career. I worked for Canon for 16 years, and I stepped through the corporate ladder piece by piece, step by step, and I left as a country director in 2009. When I left, I wanted to do some different jobs. So the first job I did was author, and I wrote a book called Amsterdam, the Essence. And by writing that book, I met my wife. She's in the front row here, that's Sheila. And so this was, apart from being a life-changing experience, it's also a pretty cool book, by the way. Then I also looked into being a digital publisher. I looked at helping small businesses communicate and present themselves. And one of the jobs that I had was helping the TV station called The Vara get new members. That was a pretty weird job. And to be honest, that was the first job that I got fired from. Now, if you sit down in front of your boss for a meeting and he puts a post-it note on the table and you can read the word stoppen, you know you're in trouble, right? You know you're going to get fired. So that was quite an experience. After that, I ended up going back to corporate. My wife and I, we decided to have a child, and our first child was due to be born in July 2012. And we had a pretty big mortgage, so a job came along, it landed in my lap. I thought, okay, let's take it. It's a business unit director job, so I get the opportunity to go back to that corporate life, regular salary. Maybe this is a good idea. But to be honest, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. The people were so rude, and it was such an uncomfortable place to work that I couldn't have cared less about the products. So I quit that one after just a few months, before they got a chance to fire me, because I knew it was coming. Then I sat down pretty much in despair and brainstormed what are the ways that we can pay the bills. Young family, I had a big mortgage from my country director days of Canon, and I came up with 7 different ways to pay the bills. One of those ways was to advise small businesses on how to present themselves. I thought, I was known as a good presenter in Canon, so can't I make a living out of that? I kind of forgot that there's loads of presentation coaches out there, but I figured, okay, there must be a possibility to make a living out of this, right? And very luckily, early on, I got connected with an organization called Startup Bootcamp. And Startup Bootcamp is a startup accelerator. They run 10 teams through a 12-week program working towards a big demo day. And that big demo day is in front of 400 people and with a lot of investors, and it's pretty much a do or die pitch. And I got to learn how to teach startups to pitch in 1, 3, or 5 minutes. And for some reason, this worked. It really resonated with me. This task of making things short, of being able to put your story across in a time-pressured moment, I started to find ways to make this possible for people. And I started trying out different methods, and some of them started to work. I also spent a lot of time talking to investors, board members, jury members, people who listen to a lot of pitches, to find out what is it they want to hear, what do they not want to hear. I would go to a network event where there would be 10 pitches. Then I would listen and talk and hear the investors talking with each other and listen out for what they liked, what they didn't like. Then I would go to them and say, which was the best pitch? What was it you liked about it? What did you not like about the others? What was the worst pitch? What was it that really bothered you about this? And so on. I spent hours and hours doing this so that I could help my clients better. Over the next 2 years, I worked. I just coached and worked with startups as much as I possibly could. And I was constantly looking for that elusive formula that would make it possible for people to feel comfortable in front of their audience, to be able to communicate their story in a short, sharp pitch that would get the action that they really wanted from their audience. I started spreading my services. I started working for other accelerators, and some companies started hiring me. Companies like Rabobank, Philips, Vodafone, ING. And when I got connected to the TEDx Amsterdam organization, I thought, fantastic, I've made it. But to be honest, it wasn't enough. Our costs were really too high, and the business wasn't growing fast enough. And at the end of 2014, I was working like crazy, most evenings in the week, but it just wasn't getting us anywhere. And around about that time, a startup came along and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They gave me a beautiful story of shares and regular monthly salary. I couldn't remember what that was like. I believed the whole story. They gave me a glorious story. I believed it. But that lasted 2.5 months. Within the first couple of months, all these things disappeared. The shares, the money, the car, none of it materialized. And within 2.5 months, we fell out, and that's where we came in at the beginning of this talk. I was fired again on the 17th of June, 2015. So we were pretty much at a bad moment, but I can tell you that that's when the work really started. Because I decided, okay, I'm just going to focus on the passion that I should never have given up, which is pitch coaching, and focus on the people in front of me. And in the coming weeks, months, and years, and ever since, I have focused ruthlessly on what will help the person in front of me shine, what will help them become more confident and get the result that they really, really want from their audience. And at times when we were nearly out of money, to be honest, we almost went bankrupt. At times when we were nearly out of money, I would say to Sheila, salvation is in the quality of the work. If I can make this person in front of me shine, if I can help them get on stage in front of an audience and be great, then everything will be okay. So just focus on everything, on your energy, onto this one thing, this person in front of me. How can I make them great? Now, I've been working at 2 things over these last 3 years and nothing else. And that is be a good daddy, be the best husband I can be, and to be the best pitch coach I can possibly be. To be honest, everything else has evaporated. Social life, going out, all of these things, they've gone. This is my life. This is how I do it. During the day, I work face to face with people. I do workshops, I do coaching, and I work through with people how can they make that great pitch. Then we stop work, go and pick up the kids, and we have dinner. There are arguments and fights, food on the floor, and then at the end we read them stories, it's hugs and kisses, and everything is fine. After that's done, we get the computer and start again. And I work 3 or 4 nights a week until midnight. And what am I doing in that time? Well, I'm trying to formalize the tools that I've learned over these last few years. I'm trying to put them in packages that will help people make great pitches. And those are tip cards like this: 5 ways to make a winning pitch, 5 biggest mistakes to avoid, 5 ways to manage your nerves. You can get these in an app that I'm going to share with you in just a minute. There is the pitch canvas. This is a 1-page tool that's been downloaded over 20,000 times. I also write blogs on LinkedIn. For example, if you're pitching in the US, what is special about that? How can you make a 1-minute pitch if you've entered the Accenture Innovation Awards? And what happens when a pitch goes wrong? And so on. I try to share the information for free. I've also created an app. You can have this, by the way. It's called Pitch Professional. It's on iOS and Android. And there you'll find that there's lots of pitch tips, there's some pitch examples, there are explanations of the pitch canvas, each of those blocks, and most of it's video. So it's short videos, 1 minute, 2 minutes, sometimes even shorter, So you can just pick up some quick tips real quick. These are all the things I've been doing, and on top of that, I've been building an online academy to try to document everything that I'm learning. I'm just at the beginning now. There's 2 courses there, Managing Your Nerves, Make a 1-minute pitch, and I have 350 students on that already. So this is it. This is how to give people access to the tools. Now, I also do this on Saturday afternoons in Starbucks. If you happen to go to Starbucks in Ferdinand Bolstraat on a Saturday afternoon, you will see this guy in his beautiful hoodie with his brilliant posture, and feel free to come and say hello. You don't need to buy me a coffee because I've got so many of those free strip cards. It's unbelievable. During the day, I coach. I do workshops. I work with people, and I love this job. I love this job. The best thing about doing this job is that you get to see the result. You help people pitch, and then they stand on a stage and they can do it. And I can't describe the kick that it can give you when that works. All of this work is coming together. And I've done this in over 26 countries now, as far away, wide as Chicago, South Korea, Buenos Aires. And I've coached over 700 startups, 8,000 professionals, and 450 workshops. I've delivered my workshop 450 times. The tools that I've packaged in Pitch to Win have been tested, because I've tested some tools that didn't work at all, and some things that worked pretty well, and then a load of tools that worked brilliantly. And I finally got to the stage where it's just the tools that work. That's everything that's in the book Pitch to Win. And I found it. I found that elusive formula to help people pitch. Now, there's no quick answer. I can't give you 1 or 2 things that will help everybody, because it doesn't work that way. You know, making a great pitch just takes a lot of work. But following the steps that are in the book, I can guarantee that anybody can make a great pitch. And some people think it's something you're born to do or not born to do. But this is something, if you follow the steps, it's just a set of work. But by following the steps that I provide you, you can know that these are things that are tested, that really work. And I just want to give you one example. Last week in Helsinki, I coached some event professionals. I did a 2-hour workshop, and they did, after the workshop, 2 pitch rounds. I think Finnish people would be the first people to say, this is not in the DNA of Finland. Standing up and talking a lot is not something they love to do. But I can tell you the pitches they made were fantastic. Really clear, really certain, a great opening, used the power of 3 to structure their story. They had customer references, what's unique, and a great closing. Now, I believe if you can get Finnish people to stand in front of an audience and infuse them, then you're really getting somewhere. So these tools really work. This brings me to Pitch to Win. It's manageable steps. It's practical exercises, so things that people can actually do. And it's full of interviews as well. I made 7 interviews with pitchers, with investors, and with board members, people who are either pitching or listening to pitches. These 15,000 hours of hard work have come together in this book. And they've also come together in this presentation because, you know, hopefully it's looking pretty easy for me to present. I'll take you back to this picture in just a moment. But hopefully it's not looking too difficult. This is because I follow the tools that I developed myself. And I had to develop them myself because the very first training I got in public speaking was in my first job. I joined Canon in 1992, and I worked for a guy called Lance Miller. Lance had worked in advertising for 20 years, and he was the guy who could make a small mouse look like an elephant, you know. He was Mr. Pitch. And he helped me. He almost forced me to learn how to do this. And he gave me a crash course in the art of pitching. But I got that training at the age of 25. I hadn't had 1 minute of help in my education at school or university. And it's last year I started wondering, you know, are they teaching this at school? Isn't public speaking offered at school or university? And I started asking people. I started asking people in the Netherlands, is this happening? And they said, well, basically no. Then I decided, okay, well, I get in contact with a lot of people from different countries. Maybe this is different in other countries. So I spoke to hundreds of people from over 20 countries. And I always ask, every time I meet someone, I say, when was the first time you got public speaking training? When was the first time you got any help? And I found out that nobody got it at school or university. And there is one exception, and that's the United States of America. You put an American up here, you say, can you talk? Boom, they can do it. That's because in high school, they get taught these tools. They get guided on how to stand in front of an audience and how to present. So here we have a task and a skill which is not taught. Now, in the last months, I've asked over 6,000 people this one question. Do you get nervous when you have to pitch? And I'm going to ask that question to you now. Please put your hand up if you get nervous when you have to make a presentation. Put your hand up if you may get nervous when you make a presentation. So there's over 90% of people in the room that have this experience. I can tell you of the 6,000 people I've asked, it's always the same. Over 90% of people put their hand up. It doesn't matter if they're experienced CEOs, young startup founders, it's always the same. So here we have a skill which isn't taught in schools, and yet something that people have to do really a lot, and they're terrified of it. And I started wondering, if communicating the value of what we do and who we are, it's constantly required. Why is it we don't teach this? And if we think about that, it happens in our personal life and our professional life. Personal life, it might be a wedding speech, or you've just joined a meetup group and they say, well, introduce yourself. So there's a town hall meeting about the mess that's been made of the street that you live in, and you desperately want to stand up and say something, but you don't dare. Even a telephone call to the electricity company can be challenging for some people. And then in professional life, job interview, pitch to an investor, presenting your new product to customers, all of these things are happening again and again. And one thing's for sure, nobody wants more complexity. Nobody's got more time. They want it shorter, easier, and faster. So the ability to communicate your story in a short pitch is becoming more and more essential. Now, I've developed this book for startups and corporate innovation teams, but I believe the tools that are in Pitch to Win can help anyone make a great pitch. And I want to go one step further. Why can't these skills be taught in school? Now, maybe the people who decide on the curricula think, well, these are advanced skills. These are skills that young people can't really get to grips with. So I thought, well, let's test that out. And in the last months, we've done trainings for 10-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and 17-year-olds. Now, I can tell you that the 10-year-olds, that was a bit difficult. It was actually Sheila who did the training, and as you will remember, Sheila, it was a zoo. It was like trying to just keep them roughly in one place was a task. The 13-year-olds, they were starting to get really interested. The 17-year-olds, they hoovered up this information. They absorbed it immediately because they had an innovation challenge. They knew they were going to stand in front of an audience, and they desperately wanted to know, how can I do this? So I want to share with you an example, a short example of about 50 seconds of a pitch from one of those 17-year-old groups of people. Let's see how the students did it.
Hello everybody. We have created Festi, an app to solve the most common problems surrounding festivals, like paying with tokens, missing a festival, and not finding a festival of your liking. We are here to make sure that you can party without worries.
First off, by means of our app, you can create a MyFesti account, which enables you to pay easily for everything. You also get a notification when there's a festival nearby, or if you're interested in a specific festival. You can click on that festival and turn on the notification, so you'll never miss one again.
But I can guarantee that there isn't any app that combines the three. And that is what makes us unique, because we do. Ladies and gentlemen, we are Festi, and we are here to make sure that you can party without worries.
Thank you.
How cool is that, huh? Pretty darn good. This is the result of a 90-minute workshop. I just gave them a workshop for 90 minutes. I gave them the basic tools, they went away and worked with them, and this is what they came up with. So the thing about this is it just needs a few hours per year. This is not like something that needs to be every single week. Of course, there's loads of pressures on what should be in the school curriculum. But if we could just put a few hours, even per year, into this, it might help people to start to learn this skill before they get to the age of 25 and before they're already terrified. These are the two things in my life. I love my job and I love my family. I'm working on the biggest goals you can possibly hope for, and those goals are to be the best daddy, best husband, and to make a great family life. Because sometimes you can lose that if you're just focusing on work. And then I'm looking to be the best pitch coach in the world. And both of these goals are really high. They're never achievable, but I'm working on it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years, non-stop, to develop this book. So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the book, embrace the tools. Pitch to Win, I guarantee you, will help you make your best pitch ever. Thank you.
Thank you, David.